What radio? The music you want.
With your host, Keys Dan.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
RadioWhat.com. What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me. Yes, me. I'd be honored to entertain for you. Speaking of entertainers, today on the program, Abby K of Abby K Music. Oh, I found her on the internets. I think it was Twitter at first, and I started listening to her music. Man, the girl's got a voice. I need to know more about Abby K. So you have that to look forward to in your ears in the next few minutes. This week's shows for me. The only public show I have this week is at the Rab on Friday night. That's my usual Friday night gig. It's the video dance party, karaoke jam. They got the full bar, the kitchen, the pool tables. Yes, there's a pool tournament Friday nights at the Rab. Out on the party patio, they have shuffleboard, foosball. You playing the foosball, Bobby Boucher? Yes, you are. And they got, the giant Jenga game, the giant checkers game. You know, there's always something to do while you're waiting to sing on the stage with little old me, or next to little old me. I won't subject you to having to hear me sing. I mean, unless you want to do a duet. Yes, I cannot say no when someone wants to do a duet, as long as I know the song somewhat. But you know, I don't sing that often because it's all about you. Yes, you. You're the stars of the show at the Rab Friday night. That starts at 8 p.m. and goes until 2 a.m. Conway, Arkansas, baby. All right. I get to talk to Abby K of Abby K Music. Yeah, let's do that. Calling Abby K now.
Hello.
Hi, Abby K, please.
This is she.
This is Keys Dan, the What Makes You Famous podcast. How are you?
I'm great.
Okay, maybe I come on a little bit strong. Abby K, so excited to be speaking to you. Give the people...
Well,
Yes. Say it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk.
Hooray.
And share. Yeah.
All right. So take me through how your day was today. Just a typical Abby K day. And is today a typical Abby K day?
It is, indeed.
So what did you do today?
So I typically start my day getting my children out the door. I have kids and get them off to school. And after that, I try to do something valuable for my mind, body, or soul. And today I decided to exercise. And then I come home and I typically spend the morning actually on music. So the first half of the day is either writing, practicing, outreach, marketing, booking, you name it. It's dedicated to music. And then the second half of the day, I do teach, and I also sell. I'm in sales, so I have another job, and I typically dedicate the second half to that.
Well, very good, Abby K. We got a little idea of what you did today, but give the people a bio of who Abby Kay is. Where, I mean, you've given me a little bit to unpack there. You're a teacher. I want to explore that. You got kids, little kids that are in school. Want to explore that. And then you have a sales job. Want to explore that. Pins, all in the Abby Kay. These are all little avenues of you. But give the people a little bio of who Abby Kay is.
Sure. I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky. So I'm from the Midwest. I have lived there for most of my life. And 7 years ago, I moved out to the Pacific Northwest, and I reside in Seattle, and came out here for work and change of pace. And but I grew up in Louisville. I think most of my musical influences come from my childhood, specifically old country greats such as Loretta Lynn and Dolly Parton and Johnny Cash. I mean, you name them. So those are probably where my musical largest influences, as I said, came from. And Abby Kay decided to not really pursue music in the way I pursue it today. Kind of focused on other avenues in corporate America. And then with that, I did that for a long time, and then decided to have children and got myself into my other job, which I said was sales, and I specialize in residential real estate, and been doing that for quite a while. And then I moved, right before I moved to Seattle, I did that for about 15 years. And then right before I moved out to Seattle, I started recording my first record. I'm a late bloomer in songwriting. And what I mean by that is I didn't start writing songs when I was, 2, like so many kids do today. And they're, famous by 16. So I played the guitar for quite a while, and I really dove into songwriting about 12 years ago. And I was always a singer. I studied performing arts, so I loved being a part of the theater. I didn't know what my real calling was until a little later, and finding myself, and I found myself loving the guitar and loving to sing. And that led me to, the craft of songwriting, and that's when it began. So I started my first record, and then when I moved out here, I finished it, and I have since others. You're telling me that you've been influenced by the greats, and I can tell. I listen to your music. I'm hearing the Loretta Lynn, the country feel in there. But what really struck me? I'm listening to some of it, and I hear a little Rachel Sweet in there as well. I don't know if you're familiar with who that is. I'm not. Okay, she's got the higher range, the higher pitch, and your voice just really, it reminded me of that. Not exactly, because you do have a voice all your own, and I encourage you, the happy listeners, to check out her on her Spotify, and go to her YouTube and give her a little subscribe on that one for sure. Abby Kay. Now, you tell me that the influencer is from Louisville, Kentucky, and you did help me to pronounce that properly, because I did have a Louisville Slugger when I was a kid, and that was my favorite bat that I had forever. Growing up for sure. And I was corrected many times. Louisville, not Louisville, Louisville. And you got to you're correcting me even more. It's not even Louisville, it's Louisville. Am I pronouncing it even remotely correct? Okay. Hello? Yeah, now I hear you.
Okay, good. So, what does an Abby K growing up in Kentucky? You say you were influenced from an early age by the country legends, the greats. Who got you into that? Mom or dad or any other family members? How did you get your start in that type of music listening?
Probably my parents. You know, one of my earliest memories is singing in the living room. You know, with who knows what I used as a microphone, and pretending, you know, 5 years old, singing Linda Ronstadt and Crystal Gale. Those were two of my favorites as a child. You know, I guess lip syncing, and not really lip syncing, karaoke, except it didn't exist back then.
Right. Well, what years was this growing up in Louisville? What year did you graduate high school?
1991.
91? So you're a whippersnapper.
Yeah.
Youngin. Class of 86 rules. No, I could tell that you've had the very. If your parents were about the same age as mine, they're giving you this foundation in music, and Crystal Gale for sure, Linda Ronstadt for sure. Were you able to see them visually, like on the television, or was this all primarily listening to records?
That they were definitely records, and really probably. Well, in those days, it was, if you can believe it, they were 8 tracks.
Yes, kids. For those that don't know, an 8-track is a type of tape with music on it that you had to listen to the whole album, unless you had a real fancy 8-track player that had fast forward on it, which I did, and yes, I'm bragging. So, yeah, I remember my first 3 8-tracks were the Eagles' greatest hits, Stevie Wonder's Superstition, and
nice.
Steve Martin's Wild and Crazy Guy. Yes.
Oh, that's fun.
Those were my early influences. So you had 8 tracks. Okay, give me the collection. Was it Mom's collection or Dad's collection?
I mean, both of my parents love music. I wanna say it's probably more my dad, because he one that always told me I should go be a country singer in Nashville. So maybe it was him, but yeah, they had photos. You know, the album covers were on those either records or the 8 tracks, and I also listened to a lot of. They had what's his name? He passed away in an airplane. Jim Croce.
Oh my.
That was a big album of theirs, and just that whole scene, that whole time period of music. And I just remember playing them, you know, even down to the movie Kermit the Frog, the Rainbow Connection.
Oh my goodness, yes.
all those. Prior to me being 10, and then singer Neil Diamond had a really good collection back in the.
Okay, so I heard you talk about the Rainbow Connection, Kermit the Frog. One of my first albums was Sesame Street Fever. Dig it. And I remember, Rubber Ducky was on there.
And Free to Be. And Free to Be You and Me. Did you have that one?
Free to Be You and Me. No, I did not. But tell me about. Okay, so this is you growing up. Where was the 8-track player? And did they have one in the car? Was this in the living room? Where were you listening to this music?
Mostly my living room.
So you had an 8-track player in the house, a hi-fi stereo with quadraphonic sound.
Yes.
And
then we moved.
Yes.
And then we moved into just the typical tapes. You know, mostly tapes were pretty big in my childhood as well.
Right. So recording stuff off the radio primarily, or You know,
Oh, absolutely. And or we had tapes too. We would buy tapes, and I would rewind them and play them, and rewind them and play them. Request them on the radio. Get my voice on the radio, and then hear the song.
wasn't that a hoot, Abby K, when you called the radio station and they actually put you on the air? And then you requested that song, and while you're requesting the song, the DJ, you could tell he's rummaging through whatever recorded devices he's got to get that song on the air right away for you. He's Abby K, you're on the air at WHYI. Give me the song you want to hear.
Yeah, that was always a really exciting moment, and doesn't exist today. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
So what song what would you request? Do you remember requesting any specific song?
Oh, probably, I think the years that I requested the most were my early teens. So probably songs like Take On Me from Aha.
One of the greatest videos of all time.
Of all time,
Yeah.
and songs for that matter.
Well, no, I play that. I play a lot of music videos when I do the DJ thing. So yes, that video will be played if you don't request anything else.
Yeah. So I remember, the 80s, mid 80s, early 80s, Madonna. I'd request a lot. Let's see who else I requested. Trying to think of my 80s influences. I would say most of the influences from the 80s, honestly, was fashion.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
As opposed to the music, and not a diss to the 80s at all. Probably just is not the genre, the time period of music that I was moved by the songs that I heard mostly on the radio.
Oh, I get it, Abby K. You mentioned Jim Croce, and I can hear the folk singer type of music that is also influenced in your sound as well. I mean, who do you think influenced you the most? Give me the top five
Top five.
Yeah, top five musicians that. Wow, these people really, I appreciate them. I kind of idolize them a little bit. I had all of their records or a lot of them. Top five.
Top five in no particular order.
No.
I'll start with Crystal Gayle because she's my earliest that I really. I will move into a more recent. 20 years ago, recent. I don't know if you know Brandi Carlile.
Come on, kid.
Okay, good. And what I love about Brandi is that I saw Brandi 20 years ago when she was opening for the Indigo Girls.
Yep.
And I'll never forget sitting at Chicago at the outdoor music park, and I just remember saying to myself, I think it was The Story she was singing, and she wasn't big. She was big, but she wasn't Brandi yet. She just hadn't gotten to that stage, and it was mesmerizing. And I love it because she lives in Seattle, or she lives close by. So I love that I moved to her to the place that kind of made her who she is, and she's a huge influence of mine. So Brandi Carlile, I just said, okay, here's one. It might seem unusual, but Wilco, Jeff Tweedy. I don't know if you know. I hate to say that. I'm sure you know who Wilco is. Maybe not.
No, of course. I'm not familiar with. I couldn't name a tune, but I know that they're. They were. No, go ahead. School me on Wilco. Tell me about Wilco.
Wilco is, just all I can say about Wilco and Jeff Tweedy is that prepare yourself to dive deep and be blown away. Jeff Tweedy is a legend in his own right. He's from Chicago, or actually he's from somewhere in St. Louis.
Well,
nearby,
it says Chicago, Illinois, somewhere in there. I'm looking him up right now.
Yeah, he's tremendous. He's basically one of those guys that just can't write a bad song if he even tried.
Okay.
And so he's more of a, kind of in the same time frame as Brandy, a big influence, especially when I lived in Chicago. Okay, so and you'll enjoy that. So hopefully I'll give you a new earworm to enjoy.
Oh, you may have chosen my Friday night theme for the
good.
show that I do every Friday night. I'm always looking for something special, and usually the crowd is kind of they're my age, are I know, like you said, like I said, you're a youngin', you're quite a couple of years younger than me, but I always try to give them something, and yeah, Wilco might be in there, and a little Brandy Carlisle, and then I always throw in a little Abby Kay, whoever I was talking to this week, I throw a little bit in there, and people go, "Who is that?" Well, I'll let them know it's Abby Kay. That's who I'm talking to. That's who you're listening to right now, happy listener.
Well, thank you. That's so nice. So nice of you. I'll give you one more because I don't know if I can give you 5 at the top of my head without thinking about it. It's such a hard decision. I would say I'd say another really big influence of mine musically, and it's not going to make a lot of sense. It's a Scottish band, and they're called Travis, and they've been around for a very long time. However, I just, when I think of when someone asks me who are your top favorite bands, Travis is on the list. And especially at the beginning, I was just incredibly into them as I began my kind of songwriting, journey. So I don't know if I sound like them. I don't at all, but they're a great band. So
I'm looking them up. They're from Glasgow, and they were formed in 1990. So that's very telling. Is all through most of the music that you're influenced by was either the late 90s, but that one's formed in 90. I'm guessing that they had some hits in the 90s. So you're growing up in Kentucky. How was your school life? Did you study? Did you do any music in school, or you said you did some theater in school in Kentucky?
I studied theater, and it was mostly outside of school, community theater and whatnot. I was not an instrument player. I didn't pick up the guitar really until my 20s, and then I put it down until my 30s.
Well, who talked you into picking up the guitar in the first place in your 20s?
Yeah, I'd say it was my husband.
Okay, so you got married very early then.
I got married, almost 30, not too young, late 20s, and I think one day he gave me, I don't remember what it was for, but it was a gift, and it was a guitar and some lessons at this beautiful school, a really special school in Chicago called the Old Town School. And I was a participant of the Old Town School for over a decade, and I never left once I started. And that's really where I learned to play the guitar and started to songwrite.
Well, that sounds like a very thoughtful husband. What made him think to give you a guitar? Had you showed any interest at all in this, Abby Kay?
I don't think so. I think he had been taking lessons there and said, "You have," he loved my voice, but I was not a singer, and I perform, and I wasn't doing theater. And he must have just said, "You might like this," and I really did.
And you did, man. The guy he had a vision for you, and you do have a
Yes,
very
he did.
nice voice. And like I said,
Oh,
I
thank
encourage all the happy listeners to go chase Abby K down on every social media platform that they can find, and buy every record that's available for sure. Now, okay, so backing up, when was the first time that, okay, besides singing in your living room and making your family very happy, any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have one brother,
One brother. Okay. And older or younger?
older.
And what did he end up doing?
Just a pretty, I think, pretty normal job. Was a very talented musician himself, but didn't really do anything with it.
Oh, how sad. Okay. All right. But you have a good relationship with your brother?
We have a fine relationship.
Good. Good. And the parents still around?
Yes, Mom and Dad are alive and well, and very close to my parents.
Yeah.
Still, even though they're still in Kentucky.
In Kentucky. All right. Well, excellent. It's good that you have those Kentucky roots, and I think Kentucky's it's got its own musical flavor, its own musical feel. What was the music scene like in Kentucky? You didn't leave until later, right? Till you were an adult, really, to go to Seattle. What was it growing up in Kentucky? And were you singing at all? Were you doing any extracurriculars? What is the foundation of an Abby K musician, artist, and more?
Well, I would definitely say that there was, I did theater. Like every opportunity I could, I was in a play. I was probably in 24 plays in my childhood. I danced. I was a big dancer as well. And the music scene in Louisville, it's not that Louisville wasn't, didn't have culture, because we did. We'd go see at some plays. They had a nice theater, where like the orchestras played, like a hall. It was called the Kentucky Center for the Arts. So they did bring in culture. I just don't remember. My parents loved music, so they would occasionally take us to these bluegrass festivals. There was a lot of bluegrass, obviously, in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So, yeah. So, I recall going to, outdoor festivals in the summertime. I don't think they took me to see Crosby, Stills and Nash, but I know I tagged along with some friend whose parents did.
Excellent.
So it was definitely in the mix. I don't know Louisville in the band scene the way I know it as an adult, because I wasn't going out into the bars. I don't know if I really lived there when I was even legal. Not that you needed to be, but still.
So when was the earliest play that you got into, Abby K?
It was Peter Pan, and I was Tinkerbell.
What? You got a pretty big role in your first play? How old were you then?
Yeah, I think I was 6.
And who talked you into getting into this play? Or what presented itself to what opportunity presented itself that allowed you to be in a play?
Abby singing Crystal Gale and Kermit the Frog 24/7 in the living room.
And then Mom and Dad said, "No, I can't handle this. We need to get you out and have somebody else to listen to this."
Yes. I think performing was in my, I think I was in some way I liked to be a bit, in the spotlight, which is funny because I can't say other than when I sing, and I get up with my guitar. I don't really love the spotlight anymore. It's kind of funny.
I understand it completely. Here I am on a microphone talking to you on the phone. You know, I'm alone in the studio, but I'm talking to you, and I'm able to have a conversation with you, Abby Kay. But for the most part, yeah, unless I'm performing, I'm a little more introverted than people might suspect. And I could see that. A lot of artists are like that, where they do want to have a little bit of a private life. They don't want to be, you know, well, I noticed that there's a lot that have their pictures taken all the time. And I don't know if I could live in a lifestyle like that, where people just want to keep taking your picture and won't leave you alone. You want to have the ability to create, but still keep your anonymity. Is that where you're at?
Yes, very much so. I'm pretty private, you know, as a lot of artists are. It's just important. It's important that I channel my, you know, when you're balancing many different things in your life. If I didn't have other priorities, I'd have less things to need to channel. But it is work to, you know, keep them separate, but blend them in a way that's productive to your life and those that are in your life.
No, you're out on stage, you give it your all, you're in front of however many people, entertaining them, making them feel good. But once you get home, you kind of want to be in the bubble. Maybe I'm just projecting, but is that the case?
Oh, absolutely. I want to be present. I think present is a really important part of life, is being present where you're at when you're there. So, you know, like your kid comes home from school, and my kids are a little older. They're still in school, and but when they come home, you know, it's really important that if I'm home, if I'm, you know, there, that I'm there. Because sometimes that's really the only 15 minutes that they're there and ready and want to share. And you would think that they'll share later if you're all sitting down for dinner, maybe. But most of the times I find that's not the case. So being present at the moment that you are in is, I try to do, whether it's writing, whether it's, you know, that's kind of like what I was saying earlier, how I break my day up, you know, these few hours are for music and these few hours are for this. It's just the way I have learned to balance the many hats that I wear. Not everybody does wear many, many hats, you know. Some people can handle it, some people can't. Some people can do it, and you know, they have a very different process than that. But I do find it to be, you know, I tell myself a lot to be present and where am I at this moment and where should you be?
Absolutely, Miss Abby Kay, and I can understand that completely. You know, sometimes depending on how the ages of the children, and I'm a father myself, I have two girls, so depending on their ages, you may have to wait for them to come to you. My 14-year-old, sometimes I have to wait, you know, until she wants a hug. You know, sometimes I'll walk by her and she doesn't want to be. She wants to be left alone. And, you know, you know, but then, you know, I do have an older daughter. She's in her 20s. And I know that once they get a certain age, they love you unconditionally. You know, they go away during their teens and then they come right back for the most part.
Oh, it's so nice to hear. You know, and people have told me that, but I'm still in the teens, and it can be challenging.
Okay, that's a good word. Challenging. Yes, indeed. You have boys or girls?
I have two boys.
Two boys. Okay. See, I've never had that experience. I do have some nephews, and I've never had the experience of having boys. And but I do know that that girls are a challenge in themselves, at least for a father. But I suppose it could be the same for a mother raising the two boys. In that respect, because fathers have a relationship with their boys and with their girls for that matter. But how's your relationship? Well, it seems so far, I mean, that you've already said that when they come home from school, you want to be with them. You want to know about them, know about their day. But your relationship for the most part is good with them. Is that what you're projecting?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't go to say that there's not a lot of work, involved in it being that way. But as we said, it has its challenges. But yes, they are two, the two dearest things in my life, and they're both very musical, and they're better than I am.
Oh my! You've passed on the gene. Okay, and I know the gene has been in your family. You said your brother was a musician of some kind.
My mom is too. Yeah.
And your mom too. Well, how far did they go with their music?
The living room.
Okay. Okay. It takes a little bit of courage to get out into the world and say, hey, look, I created this thing. Would you like to hear it? Bam,
Yes.
And then you're ready for the criticism, and then you shy away. Oh no, don't tell me it's bad. Please tell me it's good. Love the thing.
I tell people, if they ever ask, how long have you been writing your own music? And, in the scheme of it, I really have not been writing a significantly long time. But you know what? I don't think I could have, I don't think in my young Abby Kay days, I don't know if I could have handled it. I really don't. I don't know if I could have handled the criticism or the likes and the not likes. And I think it would have been really, I was probably too sensitive. I don't know if my skin was thick enough. And not that it's so thick now, but it's certainly at a place where I can accept my music and my voice and whatever. It's not for everybody. So I don't know if 20, 30 years ago, if I would have been able to, even if I had wanted. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Once you get to a certain age, before I turned 50, I was very conscious or very prideful of my age. Oh, I don't want to let people know my age. But then when I turned 50, I'm 50. I screamed it from the rooftops. I can kick, I can stretch and kick. I'm 50. So yes, I've
be proud.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And as we get older, we figure out that all that stuff that we were worried about as a young person, we don't have to really worry about that. It was really nothing. Life goes on. No matter what life throws at you, you can pretty much get through it. And especially if you have a family that's loving and you have a very tight family. You have your mom and dad and your brother and they're very helpful. And then you have your husband and the kids now. So it sounds like you have a good team that's supporting you in any endeavor that you go through. So, all right, you were Tinkerbell in your first play, and that's so cute. Peter Pan, every instance, every animation, or what, every time there's a Peter Pan story to be told, I want to be there because I love that story. For sure. And that's something from an early age that came to you. So, how often after that did plays present themselves, Abby Kay? Was it 2-3 times a year? You said you've done many, but how often was
probably
that?
Every season when there was certainly a fall one. There was certainly a spring one. Summers, I would go places to study theater. That's, I thought I was going to go to New York.
Well, this was all outside of school? This wasn't with the school that you had in Louisville?
Yeah, some of the schools, as I got older, they were at the school plays, but there was always there was always an extracurricular theater as well. I don't know if I was ever doubling up, but I definitely was involved with theater, outside of school as well.
Well, all right, Mom and Dad, encouraging your creative nature.
They did.
That's great.
They did. I'm very lucky that that they wanted to, encourage it and not stifle any creative sides, because it's an easy thing to do or want to do as a parent. So,
did you ever get to play with your brother at all in any of these plays?
No, he was not into theater.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, how did
Yeah.
the kids treat you in school being a theater geek?
Yeah, I was a geek.
But a theater geek, that's a different kind of a geek. That's a special kind of geek.
I mean, people were, I was, I don't look back at my childhood and say, oh my God, it was just miserable. But, I was really, when I graduated from high school, I was very ready to fly, and spread my wings outside of Kentucky.
Okay.
Because,
Well, I could see that.
it was,
most kids do want to spread their wings, and I encourage anyone, spend your whole 20s flying and falling down if you need to. You still have your Wolverine powers. You'll bounce back. You're made of rubber. That way by the time you're 30, you're ready to settle down. You've sowed all your oats and what have you. And I've said that so many times on this podcast. I think people are going to get tired of me saying it, but I'm going to tell you,
but
spend
it's
your
true.
20s having fun.
I don't know if people can, when they're there, they always understand and see that, so I agree, try as many different things and opportunities and places to travel as you can.
After high school, Abby Kay, what did you do?
After high school, what did I do? Oh, I went to college. I studied in on the East Coast, or closer to the East Coast. I moved to D.C. and
that's right on the East Coast.
Yes. I studied public communications and theater, actually.
And how did that go?
That was great. I loved it. I enjoyed college. Although I didn't love DC once I got out of college.
Okay.
No, once I got out.
What is it you didn't like about DC?
Politics.
Oh, well, I guess everyone is involved in that in one way or another. No matter who you meet, everywhere you turn, you're going to find somebody who's involved in politics of some kind or another. Yeah.
Correct. And it was just not my cup of tea. Not that I'm not interested in following as, a person. I just didn't want to live, breathe, work. Everything was political. Everything.
So you went as far away as you can from the nation's capital, without getting out of the lower 48.
Although first I went to Chicago for 20 years.
Okay, what happened in Chicago?
Yeah.
How'd you get there?
Oh, Chicago. I moved. I said I don't like D.C. anymore, and I've always wanted to live in Chicago.
Why?
And so I just because I think the real reason is when I was little, I would watch the WGN, which is a Chicago television station.
Oh, yeah, I remember. It's the first cable channel besides TBS in Atlanta. For some reason, those two channels were the biggest things in the country for a long time.
I knew Chicago commercials. I knew carpet lingos. And I just, I was very connected to Chicago. I loved the Cubs. There was just, I don't know, that's where, and it was closer to home. It was the Midwest. So I moved myself to Chicago. And
all by yourself?
All by myself. And that's that's just kind of where I feel, that's where life really started for me, because I really kind of put down my, myself and my roots, and I stuck around for a long time. And
so Abby Kay gets off the bus in Chicago, Chi-Town. What do you do? I mean, were you there for a job? Did you have any plans when you got to Chicago besides living in Chicago?
Yeah, I think I was looking for a job. I did lots of things. Let me think how many years.
Well, what was the first thing that you did in Chicago? Well, your first job.
I raised money for a nonprofit organization, and I did that for a couple of years. And then I actually went back to school. I forgot about that little piece.
Then what did you want to be when you grew up? The second time.
Then exactly. It was not a songwriter yet.
Okay.
So, I studied business communications. So kind of
furthering your public relations type of thing.
Yes,
maybe?
Public relations and investor relations, and kind of sitting in a company at the table as a communications perspective. So I did that. I got out of school, and during school, that's actually when I met my husband.
Hooray!
And so I was kind of stuck in Chicago. So I couldn't really move again.
So what was he doing at the time? Was he in school as well, or was he in?
No, he was.
He had a job.
He was working. Yeah, he was already established and working, and I couldn't be like, "Hey, I'm moving to Boston. See ya."
So is he from Chicago then?
He is. Yes.
Oh, cool. All right. So that's why you moved to Chicago, to meet this guy.
Maybe. I think you're right.
Well, good.
So, yeah. So I stuck around and worked for a few years, and then I got into real estate, and real estate's been a constant, one of my constants for 15 or so years. So.
Fantastic. If you can do it and do it well, my goodness, you could do it from anywhere. You could pick up and go anywhere and do it. And
you can.
And you're getting people houses. That has to feel so good, Abby Kay.
It does.
Here are the keys.
People, yes. Helping them. It's a big, the biggest purchase most make in their lives. So I love working actually with first-time home buyers the best. They're the most rewarding.
So straight out of college, you started doing that, or did you get into a corporate gig of some kind?
Oh, yeah. No, I did other things probably for, 5-6 years before I started real estate.
And what got you into real estate then?
I think buying my first home.
Oh, how fantastic.
Yeah.
How inspirational is that? You bought your first home and you said, hey, you know what? I could sell these things. That was a good experience. Or maybe you thought maybe you can give a better experience.
No, I thought I do remember it was a very positive experience, and I was so enthused, and I loved the process, and it's kind of a neat, it's a neat way to find something that you're passionate about. Is, you don't realize it at the time, but when you're doing something, I was like, wow, I like this a whole lot better than what I get up to do every day. So, I think I was going to go do it.
So you bought your first place in Chicago proper, or was it just outside or anything?
Yeah, no, we bought a condo it was in Chicago. It was in the northern side of near Wrigley Field. But that was my first home.
Well, fantastic.
Yep.
And were you married already?
Yes, I think we had gotten. Yes, we had recently been married. Yes.
Oh, Mazel Tov! Excellent.
Oh, thank you.
May the honeymoon never end.
Yes.
Well, fantastic.
Almost
You were starting.
20 years later.
So what? How many?
This year will be 20.
Wow, that's wonderful. The honeymoon has not ended. No, no, that's great. You went to Chicago. You went back to school a little bit. You found your niche in a little bit of corporate gig, but then you found real estate, and you've been dabbling in that ever since.
Yes.
Super. All right. So
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Chicago. Anything else happen in Chicago? Did you do any singing, any karaoke bars, or anything?
Yeah, it's where so that's the school, and when I say school, it's a music school, so you just sign up for classes, and but the school in Chicago was called the Old Town School of Folk, and it's just an incredible school, and it's like from 1 to 99 is you'll see there, and they very unique way of teaching people how to play the guitar, and it's very folk oriented, and you have jams and you sing together, and you make really good friends, and you that's really where music really started for me and my personal music journey.
And this is 20 years ago, 99.
That was about, in 1999. That is roughly when I started picking up the guitar again.
Excellent.
And, I never put it down. I had an incredible guitar teacher who really could have made or could have either made or broken my songwriting endeavors.
Now,
when you're
when your husband first met you, had you been playing the guitar or showing any interest in music at all?
Yes, he is a killer music connoisseur. He doesn't play instruments per se. He plays a little guitar.
No,
but,
I'm saying when he first met you, were you a musician of any kind at that point?
No, I was not.
And then what did he think when you said, I'm going to start playing this guitar here? What did he think?
Well, remember, he gave it to me.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
oh, my goodness.
So
I got to be more present. Yes, he gave you that guitar. No, the very thoughtful gift that started your career back on track.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good song concept, by the way. Just in giving me a new idea to contemplate.
Well, good. You can have it.
Yes. Thank you.
That's beautiful. I want to hear that song. Coming soon from Abby Kay. Yes, your husband, your very thoughtful husband, gave you a guitar. Was it an acoustic guitar?
Yes, absolutely.
What kind of a guitar?
The first one I played was called an Ibanez.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at an Esteban right here. My grandma got it for me. No, it's not really. It's not really. It's one of those ones you catch on TV. But I do have an Ibanez electric guitar in a box right here in front of me.
Nice. Yeah. So, they're not the fanciest of guitars, but it was a solid guitar. And, that's not, I played that guitar for a long time, but I quickly moved on.
What was the first song you learned on it?
The first song I learned on the guitar, it was probably something simple like Wagon Wheel. You know that song?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Old Crow Medicine Show, Wagon Wheel?
Well, yeah, the song is really old.
Yes.
So
now Darius Rucker, Wagon Wheel, yes. But it is
many people.
An old song.
Old. It's an old folk song, which is probably why I learned it at Old Town, in one of my classes.
Very cool.
But,
so how long did you spend in that music school, in the Old Town Music School in Chicago? How long was that?
It was about 10, 15 years. From 99 until 12 years.
Wow, that's the long lesson plan.
Yeah.
So in all that time, what did you pick up?
I went all the way from Guitar 1 through Guitar Forever, they called it. And then I moved into the private lessons with my teacher.
That sounds like a
And I got-
fantastic school to make you want to be
When I
there
got
for all these years. This is great.
Oh yes, it's heaven, and Seattle doesn't have anything like it at all. My dream is to somehow bring that concept here, but I don't know if that will ever happen.
Oh, you
But
absolutely
never say
should.
never.
Well, it shows
Yes,
a lot
I
of
know.
discipline that you took the time and the effort to put it all into that. Because some of these kids will learn 3 chords and say, oh, I'm going on stage now.
Right.
You know, and did you feel like you could play in front of people? What after how many
No.
years were you confident enough to say, hey, let me take this guitar to an open mic and see what happens?
Probably 6 or 7.
That's a lot of years. Okay, and you're building your confidence up. This is going back to you saying that you were kind of shy and introverted and didn't know if you could be up on stage. But you had been up on stage before as part of an ensemble, at least in the theater.
Yes, but the difference, I will tell you, Dan, the difference
Yes.
is that when I was upstage on the theater, I was always another character. It was very easy to be somebody other than myself. And I think when I got to it was just me with my guitar, it was really me. Whether I was singing somebody else's song or my song, I wasn't another character. So I find that's probably why the transition might have been, I mean, I knew that's what I loved and what I wanted to do, but it wasn't exactly the same. They're quite different.
That's very telling of you, Abby Kay, because there are a few musicians that have revealed over the years that the character, the person they portray on stage is in fact a character. Elvis Costello for one thing, and David Bowie for another, and even Madonna that you mentioned before. She becomes a different character, over the years. But who knows who they really are? But you, when you get up on stage, you feel that you are portraying yourself and putting yourself out there for others to hear. That's
Correct.
very telling. And it's beautiful.
Correct.
It is beautiful. And
Well, thank you.
And it's got to be heart-wrenching for someone who's introverted and shy for the most part. Oh my goodness, all these people, I'm putting this thing out there, and please love me, please.
But you know what? It's easier for me to perform to strangers than it is people I know.
I believe
Most
that
people.
to be true. I believe it. Oh my goodness! If I'm playing at a party and my family's there, it is.
Yeah.
It's nerve wracking. I could play
much
for
harder.
strangers all the time.
Yes.
So okay, all right. So so the first time you get on stage, what was that? How did that feel? And what was the situation? And what song did you play?
I was it was such a fun time. I literally at the music school at Old Town, they had a class called Open Mic. And the whole class was preparing a song to be able to get up at an open mic. That was the entire class. They taught you how to hook up the sound, the speakers and the sound system to the mix board and your guitar and test it and the mic and the vocals. And I learned, I think it was 4 weeks long. It was about 4 weeks. And I learned the song I learned, the first song I ever played it with my guitar, and I sang and played at the same time, which was so hard at the time. Let's see, it was a Travis song, and it was called Flowers in the Window. And it's a beautiful, sweet, wonderful song that I recommend you play that on Friday as well.
Yes, ma'am.
But that was my first open mic song, and the class ended. And what we had to do, we had to go to the open mic. We couldn't just play for the class, for the 5 of us. We had to go to the open mic that my teacher ran. So we went. I was so nervous. I'm like, I can feel how nervous I was just thinking about this. And I all, all I wanted was like a glass of wine or something to just take it away. But I didn't, because I can't perform when I've had alcohol in my system. So I got up and I did it, and I'm not sure I even remembered if I did it, but I did it. And I was in a very supportive environment where the teacher did this with his class, so everybody cheered.
Excellent.
And it was just a great first, your maiden voyage, right? Your maiden run, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
horses. And
You got that out of the way, and now the rest is cream cheese, right?
kind of, because there's good moments and there's bad moments, and it's not always perfect, but yeah, I can't explain it. Like, once you got that over, and I kept doing it. The other thing I did do is I continued to push myself. So I learned new songs, and I learned, memorizing them, and they weren't my songs for many years. I just learned covers. And
So what were your go-tos?
performed.
How many did you have in your pocket?
Oh, at any given time, I probably had 4 or 5. Learn new ones and then forget the other ones. And
Okay. So you weren't adding to your arsenal. You were
wasn't adding, no.
expending those bullets, and then picking up some a new pack.
Correct. It was not a great skill. Like, I'm not great at that. So, like, today, if you asked me to play songs from my first record, like, I would really not be able to do it on the spot because I don't play them frequently.
Oh,
So,
but I wanted to hear "Endless" and "Ceasefire." And
well, good, because I am relearning those, because I'm going on tour in January, and I'm going to be playing a few from all of my records. So,
excellent.
Yes. I mean, I'll be able to learn them again, but it is funny when you concentrate, on 12 songs that you've been writing and playing for 2 years. Like, the thought of anything else just doesn't, I'm like, what? So, but now that it's out and released, I'm kind of bringing back the best of. And I love that you said "Endless," because that's probably my favorite song on that record.
Oh, you're the coolest. Yeah. Of course, I stalked your YouTube, and in preparation for this, I wanted to hear who I was talking to, and you've got some chops, girl. So, yes, allow me to butter your bread a little bit. Yes, you're good. You're good, I tell you. So, Abby Kay, I know we're kind of going all over the place a little bit, but we are getting your thoughts on certain things and ideas and how you came to be the Abby Kay that you are today. Now, so you're in Chicago, and you're married, and you're taking these music lessons after 6 years. You get on an open mic in front of your class, and how many songs did you know at that point that you were able to? What was the next thing? Did you just immediately go find the nearest open mic and say, "I'm going to play in front of these 20, 30 people"?
Yeah. I probably went back to that open mic for a year or two because it was comfortable, and I was, it was a supportive environment. And then I moved, like, there really wasn't, that's not true. I hit other ones. I met other people outside of, in time, and I'd play 2 or 3 songs at a time, but that's when I started in there. After a few years, that's when I really said, this is boring. Like, I don't want to learn someone else's song. That's when I started that's when I wanted to start writing my own.
Well, Chicago, from what I understand, is a big music town. I haven't spent much time north of the Mason-Dixon, but
okay.
But I'd love to go to Chicago because, just for the blues, and for the flavors in that town. Did you get to hit any of the blues bars? Did any of that influence you at all, or you were primarily in your school?
Yeah, I was primarily in the folk. I would just call it the folk scene. I was not a blues player because I can't really play the blues very well. but I loved it. I mean, you're right. Chicago is a killer music town. I mean, there's
yeah, I suspect.
killer. Everybody who's anybody goes through Chicago. So the amount of music in 20 years of living there that I digested and was able to, see and get a chance to hear and be a part of in any way was really, really, really nice, and a really big foundation of all that music that I took in as I kind of started writing. And I'm sure my perspective changed a lot when I started writing and when I went to go see musicians that I just, I loved, and I, couldn't believe I was about to see them live.
Give me an idea of who, because I mean, you got to experience the music of the music town, Chicago. Who were you seeing that were inspiring you at this point, Abby Kay?
Lots of bands. Let's see. What's that band called? Oh, Rogue Wave. You ever heard of Rogue Wave?
No, I'm probably learning more about music. I've been a DJ since 1986, but I'm learning about all these different bands, and I'm going to play a little bit of them on Friday night, and the people are going to be going, "What is he playing over there?" That's new. That's different.
Rogue Wave is an example of the. I would say most of this music now is, in the 2002 range to 2006 range. What's it called? I think it was called, what's the song called? Something, Lake Michigan, of course, because Chicago's on Lake Michigan. So the song Lake Michigan, but that's just one of their songs. But bands like Rogue Wave and some people say Ockerville River, but I say Okerville River. Wilco, as I've already mentioned, who I've seen, I mean, really, so many, I don't even know how many, I've lost count.
She's a
fan.
Every
time that, and every time Jeff Tweedy or Wilco or his son's band come here, I'll see them out here too. I'm a real Wilco fan. I will travel to see Wilco.
I think it's been established that Abby Kay is a Wilco fan.
Yes. Like Emmylou, I would see people like Emmylou Harris and Iris DeMent and John Prine and all those types of musicians would come to Chicago.
Excellent.
And a lot of those I would see were at the Old Town School. They had concerts as well. So
wow.
I saw them in really intimate, beautiful venue, like a beautiful venue, not one where I was always standing with 10,000 other people. So,
how many seats at the Old Town School Theater?
What did you say?
How many seats?
Oh, I'd probably say 200.
That's a great thing. You got to be very intimate with these bands, and they came through that school. Had any of them trained in that school? What brought them there? How did they get booked at that place?
Probably because it's very well known. Woody Guthrie he kind of founded the school.
Great.
So it's all based on Woody Guthrie and his whole scene back in, I guess, the 50s. I don't remember the exact history anymore about it, but it was just like I can't think of the right word I'm trying to use. It was an era. It was a period of time where the folk music, the Bob Dylan, years, the early years, that whole genre had taken off, and Joni Mitchell and that whole scene. And that's kind of what what the folk school, the Old Town, is about.
Excellent.
So I think, yeah. So I think all of those people, those types of those genres, they would play there in a heartbeat, and it was always magical.
Abby K, I'm going to encourage all the What Makes You Famous podcast listeners when they're on their walking tour to make sure that they step towards the folk. Now I'm going to let you say the name of the school. Say it.
Yes, it's the Old Town School of Folk.
Old Town School of Folk in Chicago, Illinois. Get there, see a show, go learn the guitar. All right, so you're in Chicago and you're learning guitar and you're doing other things. I guess you're selling some real estate, getting people into houses. What made you want to go to Seattle?
Well, I never wanted to.
Okay.
I had no plans of ever leaving Chicago, and I said that for many, many years. And I don't know. One day, a job opportunity became available for my husband, and he's like, "Well, what do you think of Seattle?" And I was like, "Well, I don't think of Seattle."
Okay, I'm seeing this conversation on movies. I think there was a movie with Richard Pryor called Moving, and he was talking about, hey, what do you think of Idaho? Oh, Idaho. Did you know that they have potatoes? Yeah, Idaho. And he was trying to convince his family to go there without convincing them. So what did he say about Seattle? What were the selling points of Seattle to make Abby K enthusiastic about heading that way?
It's hilarious because there weren't a whole lot needed. And I think that was one of those times in your life where you don't shut a door and you just go through it and see what happens. And I went to visit Seattle and I loved it. There was just not one thing about the city that I didn't, maybe I was wearing rose-colored glasses at the time because I had been in Chicago for so long. But it was a big move, and we moved very far from family, and it was an adventure. And I think that's how I looked. That's how I looked at it. I said, this is an adventure. Let's try it. If worse comes to worse, I guess we can move back. It's not a failure if we try it for a little bit and don't like it or it doesn't work out. So we kind of, I don't know, I went into it with that attitude, and I don't look back, not even for a minute. And not because I don't love Chicago and half of my life. It's just, it was time to go through a new door and see a whole new different type of town with music. I mean, the music in Seattle, it's as strong as Chicago, and it's not nearly the size of the city. So, it's different. It's different. There's so many songwriters. I live in a town where I feel like every other person I know is a songwriter.
As opposed to DC, where every person was in politics. I get it.
Exactly.
So it sounds like, you were a good wife. Your husband had an opportunity. You're a good partner. And you followed him, and it's going well?
Yeah, it's had its ups and downs. But, life is like that. So... But we've stuck it out, and
yes.
we really like Seattle. So that's the good news, and
Excellent.
Overall, it's been a really positive experience. Sure.
So you've already given Chicago's tourist board a shot in the arm. Tell me about Seattle. What are the likes?
Oh my gosh!
What are the first things you
don't even realize. You don't even realize you just named my favorite Wilco song when you said that.
Well,
Hilarious.
Well, what was the
Called
favorite?
a shot in the arm.
The shot in the arm.
Called a shot in the arm.
See, we're like this. We're already mind melding. You're all the way out there in Seattle, and here I am in Conway, Arkansas, and we're chatting
That's awesome.
on the What Makes You Famous podcast. You know, like you can do real estate from anywhere. I could podcast from anywhere.
Absolutely. And I've never been to Arkansas, ever.
Ever. Well, I've never been to
Nope.
Chicago, and I've never been to Seattle, but that should change. I got to get on the walking tour, the What Makes You Famous
Yes.
walking tour. So when you got to
Yeah.
Seattle, you get your house. I guess you had to sell the house in Chicago, but you had those skills. You were able to sell things, sell houses, and buy houses. So
Yes.
you sold the house in Chicago. You get to Seattle. What's the first thing you do?
First thing I did was, let's just say for 8 months, it took me about 8 months to acclimate and come up. Like, I don't remember a lot of the first 6 to 7 months that I lived here. Not because they were bad, but because it was very overwhelming. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job at the time. I wasn't going to go back to work right away because the kids were young and we didn't have any, family here. So, like walking to the store and finding the grocery and all of that stuff, it took a lot out of me. And, I would say 7 or 8 months later, I finally looked at my guitar case. That little guitar hadn't been out of it since I had moved. It's the only period of time that I didn't really do anything with my guitar. But that's okay, because I got out and I found my new home, and I spent years playing every week at an open mic and recording a couple of my first 2 records. That's how I met people to be able to do that.
Very cool.
And
so let's get into your
I just-
songwriting. What was what started that? How did that come about? Was that when you got to Seattle, or had you been writing songs in Chicago?
Oh, yeah, I had been writing already for a few years when we moved out here. I just hadn't recorded and put anything down and gotten it out. But I don't know what it is about songwriting. Songwriting, well, I do know what it's about. Songwriting is a way that I can see a situation, or I can see the world, or I can feel how I'm feeling, and I can make it beautiful. I can put it in a concrete example. I can express it in a way that a listener can digest it. And it's not always, clear. I mean, I'm a pretty clear writer, but the way I tend to write can kind of affect a person or register and resonate with a listener in their context. It's not like I'm a traditional folk singer where I'm telling them the story. So I find that my music resonates with people because if it's something that they've gone through or that they have experienced in their way, they feel it and it hits them. So I think that is what it is specifically about songwriting, that I, as the artist, I can do that. I can take it and I can process it, and then I can write about it, and it's like therapy. Some of my songs are very therapeutic, and they're concepts and situations that, were really upsetting or I had to work through, and then out comes a song. So that's really what songwriting is about for me, and I love it.
So, Abby
Love
Kay,
it.
as you're writing the songs, are you thinking of the melody, or are you writing the words like a poem and then putting a melody to them?
I've done it both ways. I used to initially always write lyrics first. I'm definitely lyric driven. So it seems like the most obvious to me to start with lyrics. But for my second record, Heart Shaped Rock, my producer, and I co-wrote some of the songs with him on that record. He
You can
believes
shout
it's
them out.
the other way.
I want you to give
No.
full credit.
Oh yeah, Brian Marshall.
Excellent.
Brian Marshall produced my first and second record, and we sang together for a number of years, and we've co-written a number of songs together. He's a wonderful songwriter and musician in his own right, but he does it the other way. He's like, no, it always starts with melody, and we've had endless debates about this concept. So, okay, well, I was open to it. So I intentionally wrote songs all based on melody. That whole record is all melody first. So I appreciate that, and I love that. But it's really funny because I think I gravitate towards lyrics, but I do it both ways. It depends on the mood. It depends on what I'm doing. It depends on, did I all of a sudden have this, like, I start singing in the car or something, and I'll quickly, get my my phone, and I'll try and record it so I can just have it, because I won't remember it. I won't, and that's usually a sign. If you don't remember it, then I don't know if it's worth it. So if I don't get it, I always tell myself that it wasn't meant to be because it didn't stick. So, that's kind of my process. I definitely, though, am very, I'm a lyric snob. I hate to say that, but I kind of am. They're very important to me, and it's not that I'm listening for every lyric when I hear a new song right away, but it's important to me. It's important that the song speaks to me, and sometimes songs can speak to me melodically just by itself.
Well, Abby Kay, I mean, you're a singer-songwriter, and you're in the folk genre. Would you call yourself a folk singer? But for the most part, folk singers do tell a story, and they are lyric driven. And yes, you were talking about Guthrie and Bob Dylan, and and even the Crosby, Stills and Nash, or who was it you were talking about that took you to was it that show that they took you to? Or?
Oh yeah, some parent took me to Crosby. Yeah.
Right. I mean, these are very lyric driven, very story. These are storytellers. In fact, I think on VH1 they were the storytellers. There was a show, and I appreciated that show because these are people that these are songwriters that had feeling, and some, and I'm 50. These kids today with their songs, they're mumbling through, and and maybe they're repeating the same thing over and over again.
It's the same three lyric thing.
But then they could argue that they were doing that back in the 50s, saying the same
Beatles.
thing over again, exactly, with the rock and roll. But story driven, a folk singer tells a story. You are literature come to, put to music, and that's amazing. So you didn't start laying down tracks until 2014. Was that the Bare Your Soul album? And where did that get recorded?
That was recorded at Brian's studio, Brian Marshall. It's called Cobra Studios. It's in West Seattle.
How did you get in touch with him? How did you get hooked up with him?
Yeah, I met him at the open mic that I discovered, and we became friends.
Excellent.
And I was like, I'm looking for somebody to finish my record, which was pretty much the whole record because I hadn't gotten very far before I moved.
And what was the experience putting down one record, or putting down your creation on tape? I guess it's not tape anymore, on computer. Well, how was the experience?
No, it was bizarre. I mean, it's like nothing. It's nothing like performing live. Nothing. So it took a while, and there were positive sessions and negative sessions, and lots of things to lots of retakes, but I learned so much about the process, and then 2 years after that, we did it again and did it even better. I think the process was easier. I knew more, and I was I was a stronger songwriter. It's such a growth. It was a huge growth experience from 12 to 16.
Well, Abby Kay,
for me.
Okay, a lot of people that do their first album, and thankfully, for some reason that becomes a hit. They've had their whole lives to make that first album, and then 1 or 2 years to follow it up with something better. And you say that it was better because you knew the process better, and you jive better with your producer, and what made it that much easier? That you just knew more?
Knew more, and then I had all of these new experiences to write about. I had lived in Seattle for, by the time I was recording number 2, I had lived here for 2 to 3 years. So all the songs I was writing, they were influenced by Seattle. My Alki, most of the songs were Seattle. They wouldn't have been written if I hadn't been in Seattle.
So you would say that your album "With You in Mind" is a love letter to Seattle? Who was it that you had in mind?
with that song, "With You in Mind"?
Yes.
I don't know if it was anyone in particular per se. It's funny. I started writing that song. I was on an airplane. I was flying back to Chicago, actually, and I think I think I heard somebody say that phrase, and I was like, what a great phrase, "with you in mind." So I had to come up with something cool. So of course it was going to be it's easiest to put those types of things into relationship stories. So that's my homage to Linda Ronstadt and all my great. There's a couple of songs on there that I have a lot of kind of all country feel to it, but there were quite a few of those on that record, I believe.
I like that, Abby Kay. That's cool. You took it back took it back to your childhood on that one.
I did a lot of soul searching, being in a new city, going back to my roots. Maybe it was because I was in a place very unfamiliar, but that it felt very much like home. And my heart grew bigger for where I grew up.
Well, just like a child, you had all new experiences. So you were growing up all over again. And you said something about your heart, and that was your next record, Heart Shaped Rock.
Yep.
How did that come about?
I started collecting heart-shaped rocks on a beach that I would go camping at once a year, and it just became like this, one of those pastimes. And I'd be walking anywhere, and I could see a heart in just about anything, and I'm like, oh, there's a heart. There's a heart. And it was kind of funny how many things look like hearts when you're paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
But heart-shaped rock was a really the song. I actually co-wrote that with Brian, and we were the song was about almost finding yourself. Neat. And I think that was a song about finding who you were, and kind of waking up. And I think that song and Heart Shaped Rock in general was really the crux of Abby finding and being very, very aware of who I am and the kind of artist I wanted to be.
All right, Abby Kate. Now, once you put these records out, each one from Bury Your Soul to With You in Mind to Heart Shaped Rock, and now the latest one, the Whole Truth, did you tour after making all these songs? Did you put them out to the public and go play them in front of people?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I did not. I would play locally, but I never got on the road until my first tour was last January. Before I recorded The Whole Truth.
well, I say tour. Touring is, for a musician, especially a musician with children or a family of any kind, to be a touring musician, you have to give up so much. And one of the main things is a family. So I didn't imagine that you'd be touring across the country. Have you you've done that, or even touring around your city or around your state? That's another thing in itself. Is that something that you've done?
So that I did do. I toured around the state after releasing Heart Shaped Rock for during a summer. We didn't do it for very long, but we had about a 10-day tour. It went in lots of places in Washington, down to Portland. I think that's as far south as we got.
You say we. Who's we?
Oh, I toured with the gentleman Brian, my producer, who I sang with as well. He's the male voice on the record.
Cool.
And then his duo. He has his own duo. And then another third. So 3 musicians, 3 acts. We all were friends, and we all just hit the road together.
Excellent.
So we had a bill wherever we went. Yeah.
You get in the van, or you all drive by yourself, or was it a tour van?
It wasn't a big van. It was. I think it was. An SUV with a thing on top of it that we shoved all of our instruments
all right.
and our clothes.
Any tour stories? Did you get on each other's nerves, or was it pretty cool for the most part?
No, it was pretty cool. Yeah, I don't remember being too annoyed. Touring, I haven't experienced. Well, last January I did. It's tiring. It's
Believe it.
It's it's not glamorous. So anyone who thinks it is, I'll tell you now, it's not.
Oh no, you get all gussied up to get on stage, but the roadie stuff where you have to put all your stuff on stage and tear it all down, especially after you've done a 3 or 4 hour show, and now I got to tear all this stuff down, put it back into the SUV, and get to the next town.
Right. It's not glamorous. And it's a good experience. And in January, so that I did with friends. And then last year I did it with strangers, if you can believe it. I joined the tour, kind of a more of a listening room, where I'd go into very quiet, intimate rooms and play. And I loved it. And I'm like, okay, this is the way, if I'm going to tour, this is the way I'm going to do it.
So what does the family think about you touring around?
Oh, well, they accept it. They're learning.
It's what you want to do. They support you. That's good. I can tell. It's like, well, yeah, if that's what you want to do.
I don't go for long, and I always
Good.
come back. That's the promise I give them.
Well,
so
that's good.
But, as the kids are getting older, I have a junior, so I have an 8th grader and a junior, so it's getting easier. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think the touring thing is going to be if I keep doing what I'm doing. Slow and steady wins the race, right?
Yes.
So if I keep plugging away and putting my seeds out there, I think by the time I'm my kids have flown the nest, I'll have places I can go and I can sing to and I can travel and I'll drag my husband along with me eventually.
Well, it sounds like you got a good home situation there. Does the hubby still have the same
I
job
do.
that brought you out there?
But he does not. He's
Oh,
had
okay.
multiple jobs.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
hey, at least you get out there. He was the initial reason that you got out there, but you're out there,
Correct.
and it seems like you got the
Correct.
good music scene. You've met some good people out there, and now the kids are into music.
They do. They play classic. They play in their school orchestras. They're not into songwriting at the moment,
Okay.
but and they do not like the guitar, probably because I play it. But
Whatever mom's doing, let's rebel against it.
right. I have a violinist and viola player,
Sweet.
and a piano and an upright bass player.
Too cool.
So
Piano
Yeah.
will take you anywhere, and well, you got a bass and a violin. It sounds like you're okay. You've produced your own band. I get it. I get what you're doing.
I tried.
All right, Abby K. So with the Whole Truth that just came out, and how did that come about? And what do you're planning on taking a tour on that one?
Yeah, I'm in January. I'm gonna go out for about 10 days to Central California and Northern California. Hopefully, I'm still working the details out. But yeah, that project was a complete 180 from my first two, which is always exciting. It was just time to make a change and do something different. And I'd say, how did it come about? I'd say that my producer Brian, he just he had too much on his plate, so we kind of stopped doing our duo, and I just kind of found myself as a solo art, like a complete solo artist again. And I was like, oh, great. Like, what am I going to do? And how am I going to do this? And how am I going to find somebody else? And, you go through a period of self-doubt when you've kind of leaned on somebody for a while.
Yeah.
So so I just, I did my thing. I wrote a ton, and I sang my songs, and I just got to a point where, I played with a couple of people. I tried to find something, and there was just no connection. It's not like you can put an ad in a paper and say, musical soulmate, where are you? Please come find me. I find that I haven't really had many of those. I mean, my producer and my friend, I mean, he's a dear friend of mine still. We had that kind of musical connection that you have to have in order for it to be worthwhile. So there was no replacement for that, and maybe there never will be. I don't know. I'd never say never, but until I find that, I have me. So I kind of figured that out, and I decided I was preparing for the record, the recording. And in the preparation process, I found a new producer. I found a different producer, and I came up with this concept, just about the whole record. What I love about it is the entire record is 100% female created.
Okay.
100%, from the production to the engineering to the artist to the band to the players to the mastering to the marketing. Every ounce of this project was 100% female driven. And
Was that something that was important to you?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
guess in the last couple of years, I've just really, the whole Me Too movement was really big a couple years ago, and just women were speaking up, and I was so happy about that. And it wasn't with intent to discriminate against men at any cost, because I love men and I've had nothing but positive music relationships with men. But the amount of talent, the female women talent alone in Seattle, I mean, it's unbelievable that all I had to do, I found a group on Facebook called Women in Music.
Excellent.
And it just opened the door to like unlimited talent, unlimited. I posted on there, I need somebody who can play the Uilleann pipe. I mean, have you ever even heard of that instrument?
No.
Right. So kind of sounds like it's related to, it sounds like a bagpipe, but it's a little lighter. It's a little softer. But like,
taking you
here I
back to
am,
your
I need-
Scottish thing.
Yes, exactly. I said, I need an Uilleann, a female. Like, not even just a player. I need a female Uilleann player.
In the
And guess
Seattle
what?
area?
I found one, the only one, I think, in all of Washington.
Excellent.
So I'm just saying, like, it was like just this this way I could just promote and showcase females in this town, and female musicians at that. You know, the town in Seattle, the grunge town where Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, all those bands are just so male. That's what you think of when you think of Seattle. So
Yes.
I just wanted to do it, and it wasn't hard to do. It just became a very easy notion for me, and it was really cool to have female perspectives in my music as opposed to male, which is all that's all I had really had and known. And it is different. It's not worse or better. It's just different. And
I can hear the excitement in your voice, Abby Kay, when you talk about this latest project. I'm so stoked for you. And you say
Thank
it.
you.
You know, the experience working with these fine ladies was better, or was a good experience for you, and I'm happy about that. That's great, and you know, I'm glad that most or all of your experiences in the music business thus far have been positive ones, and I know that not every lady has had that in their time, which is the whole Me Too movement and yes, believe women and all that. For sure. I mean, I know the music business has its dark side, and I'm glad that you know, from what you said, you haven't had to experience that, or have you?
I mean, I've experienced kind of, you know, scuzzy situations. Sure. You know, I mean, not everybody's, you know, hands are clean all the time, but, you know, for the most part, I've, you know, maybe that's why I haven't gone as far as I maybe would hope to have gone. Who knows? Because I kind of shy away from uncomfortableness, which isn't always good. But you know, like I try to avoid situations where it doesn't make me feel good, because then I'm going to associate it to what I love to do, and then I'm not going to want to do it.
That is correct. And it's, you know, it sounds like you have other things that you can fall back on until the music gets on track, and it sounds like it's on track. So, are you going to be touring in an all-female tour in January? Is that what you're ramping up to?
Well, yes, all female, but just me. It's just a solo tour.
Tour. You got the whole show on your own. This is great. Wow. You went from that that little shy, introverted gal from Kentucky to, hey, you're the headliner, baby.
Yeah. Well, trying.
Oh, you are going to succeed. I see nothing but great things for you. Now, there was one song.
Nice.
Oh, there was one song that I listened to called "My Perfect Situation," and I was listening to it. I'm going, man, there's a lot of clarinets in here. It sounds like a klezmer band. Is there a Jewish? Was there a Jewish feel to it? That's what it felt like. I've done a lot of bar mitzvahs and parties and such,
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very. I mean, that was definitely the feel I wanted to have. Absolutely. That klezmer clarinet. I loved that clarinet. Oh, and it was. I'll never forget. I'm like, we need the clarinet in here, and Brian was like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, because it was intense.
So
It brought
what made
this,
you do that? Was there a background to it?
Well, it was just, it was, God, I'm just trying to think of the song. I mean, I know what the song was about.
Are you Jewish, or do you know any Jewish people?
Yes, I am Jewish.
Oh, well, fantastic. That's what I was getting at. My grandfather was
Okay,
Jewish.
I didn't know what you.
No, I
Oh,
never got
if you
bar
asked,
mitzvahed,
I'll
but I was
tell.
wondering about that. Okay.
Oh, really? Well, that's good. So that brings back that piece of me. Good. I'm glad that came through.
Well, cool.
I don't know if that was the intent, but I definitely love klezmer music. Yes.
Oh man, like I said, when I heard it, I went, "Oh man, you make me feel like." I'm from South Florida, and I haven't done a bar mitzvah since I left West Palm Beach, since I left Miami, since I left the Florida Keys, and but I do appreciate that music so much, But
That's cool.
but yeah, I never got bar mitzvahed. I guess by blood I'd be a quarter Jewish. But
Okay,
did you
no
grow up
worries.
very religious or no?
No, I did not grow up religious, but I grew up, I was raised Jewish. So, I don't know if I'm, much of a religious person per se, but
Okay. I was Catholic. Now I'm American. You grow up.
yeah. I mean, but I'm very connected to Judaism, and I'm
Okay.
very spiritually connected. And I think it's more of, the cultures and the traditions that are what speak to me about it, as opposed to saying, religion's complicated. It's a very complicated topic. So,
Understood.
and I don't want to offend any listeners out there by saying the wrong thing.
Oh,
because
I'm open to everything, and I hope my listeners are too.
No, exactly, and I respect I respect those that believe in things that are different from me, and believe in God, and believe in anything that they want to believe in. I'm very respectful of that. So, it's just I think it's yeah, but that is my background, and I am, and
cool, Abby K. I just heard that song, and I
cool.
was like, this is great. This is, it just gave me that feel. So it definitely came through in that song. And I'm not sure if it's come through on any other songs, but the whole clarinet, I mean, that just had, I wanted to go dance the horror. I was ready.
That's so funny. I love that. That's terrific.
And you better believe the next function that I have that involves any Jews is going to have that song in it.
What a compliment.
Oh, I'm whipping it out. All right. Well, I guess, man, I've taken a lot of your time. Abby K, tell the people how to connect with you, social wise, or how you want them to get a hold of you.
Sure. Well, I would love it. Always my first suggestion is to go to my website and sign up, because I tweet and I Insta and I Facebook as much as I humanly can. But the best way to just keep in touch, and what I mean by keep in touch when you sign up and give me your email, is that I really only share my news when there's news to share. So it's not like I'm going to be spamming and asking you for 100,000 things. So that's probably the best way to keep up with me, on a probably quarterly basis. At my website, ABBYKmusic.com. And AbbyKmusic.com is all over the social medias. If you want to hear me on a more regular basis, definitely follow me, and you'll get that too.
Well, it's a very good website. It tells you that you stay very active all around the Seattle area and the Washington area. And then as soon as you go down to the bottom, you'll see all your social links, including your CD Baby, and there's places, and the Spotify. So yes, there's places to listen to your music. Somebody needs to put a YouTube link down there so you can get to the YouTube.
There's no YouTube there?
Not on the bottom, but there is a YouTube video linked up on your abbykmusic.com. But yes, it's been such a pleasure listening to your story and listening how you became who you are. And I'm so glad that you got back into your music and you're heading in the right direction. Are there any last words that you want to give to the people, or any other thoughts?
Well, one, I want to thank you for this amazing opportunity. It's so humbling when I have these opportunities, which are not very frequent. So thank you for reaching out and making this happen. Thank you for supporting artists and independent music. That's the second and most important, because if it weren't for people like you, we wouldn't have anyone to talk to other than, Spotify and our music. So really, I'm very appreciative. And to those listening, give me a chance. I've heard many different things about my music and my voice, but I would love your feedback and anything you have to share, where you live, where you want me to come tour eventually. And just give me a spin, please.
Well, there you have it, party people. Abby K. You've heard the music, and if you haven't heard the music, you need to turn this off right now and go listen to it. Okay. Are you back? All right. Now you've heard the music, and now you've heard a little bit of the story of how that came to be. Thank you, Abby K., for giving me a little bit of time, giving our listeners a little bit of time, and sharing your story with us. Sounds like you grew up in Kentucky, and you got you got to D.C., then you got to Chicago, then you went to Seattle, and music. Thank you so much, Abby K., for being on the program and telling your story. Whew, that's it for this edition of What Makes You Famous. If you'd like to tell your story, give me a call, 501-470-6386, or email info@radiowhat.com. All right, that's it for me. It's Keys Dan, radiowhat.com, djlittlerock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.
Radio What? The music you want, with some great quotes. The average man who does not know what to do with his life wants another one which will last forever. Anatole France. The music you want, radiowhat.com. Be on Radio What. Call 501-470-6386. Say your name, where you're from, and you're listening to What? The music you want is on radiowhat.com.